The W Brothers dancing later tonight. Yeah. Alright, well this will put you in the mood. This is a famous group of Dubki songs that some of you might know. So if you like the rhythm, if you like the beat, please feel free to clap along in classic Palestinian Arab fashion. It makes me feel good, so don't be shy. time is coming to an end, so I'm going to play one more song for you, which involves me singing, so please forgive me for any mistakes I'll make in the Arabic. But I just wanted to share that, so I'm not of any Arabic origin. I'm originally Polish, but I very spontaneously went to visit Palestine with no prior knowledge of the situation. I mean, I knew that there was like some drama going on, you know, in that area, which is a very common base level amount of knowledge for an American to have. This was 6 years ago, and I went to Palestine, and it completely changed my life. I started studying the oud, I started studying Arabic. I became very involved in, you know, resistance efforts here and creating awareness. My college, Berklee College of Music in Boston, didn't have an SJP, but I kind of grafted myself into the ones around me. And playing oud has been my way of sort of sharing my experience, my personal experience, from being to Palestine now 5 different times, and seeing what it's like to live as a Palestinian in the West Bank, in Dafeh. I've never been able to go to Gaza yet. Anyways, but I just wanted to share for any like non-Arab Americans out there that it's really important to help educate your friends about this situation, because it is a major human rights crisis. I know I'm preaching to the choir here in this room, but don't be shy to use opportunities just to plant seeds in people's hearts of the truth of what's going on in Palestine. So thank you so much for having me here tonight, and I hope you have enjoyed. Thank you. It's okay. Who here knows Marcel Khalifa? Okay. I'm going to sing a song called Asfour Ghadr al-Shabak. But I'm going to start singing a different song that's very famous in English. I'm sure you all know it. And then we'll sort of transition to Asfour. So it's sort of a way to bridge the American culture with Arabic culture and create a happy love between the two of them. Well, I heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do ya? Goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, minor fall, and the major lift. The baffled king composing hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. عصفور طل من الشباك قال لي يا نونو خبيني عندك خبيني دخلك يا نونو خبيني عندك خبيني دخلك يا نونو قلت له انت من وين قال لي من حدود السماء قلت له جاي من وين قال لي من بيت الجيران قلت له خايف من مين قال لي من قصص ربان قلت له ريشاتك وين قال لي فرقة الزمن عصفور طل من الشباك قال لي يا نونو خبيني عندك خبيني دخلك يا نونو اللي من قفص الربان بيشعت جواي اللي فرفتها الزمن مظبوط على الشباك اللي يا نور خبيني عندي خبيني دخلك يا نور خبيني عندي خبيني دخلك يا نور. شكرا كثير ويعطيك العافية و thank you so much. مع السلامة.
I want you to hear the anger and the emotion in my voice. I want you to absorb every ounce of pain omitted to you. Can you hear me? Or am I just another statistic in the books? Am I just another number of those dead broadcasted on censored media with the world afraid to look? I do not want you to see me. It's a bit dark in here for that anyways. You see, there's no electricity, nothing left but this book in my left hand and pen beside of me, a half-burned candle and a lighter. You see, I'm not a writer, but I do write stories. And in my stories, I am free. I am anywhere but here. So please, please give these words to those who will live after me. And let my words pave the way for those who will end this siege. There's no lights around, so I've left it to the moon to shine upon my soul. My optimist self is still convinced that somebody somehow will save me from this atrocity. I'm not a hero, but I have rocks, and I won't run out of rocks to remind you where I'm from. So please, please give these rocks to the silent voices. Return them to the river they were stolen from, and the sea and the moonlight lighting over the olive trees. I'm not a gardener, but please, remember to water the garden that has grown over our graveyards, over the martyrs that fought from the river to the sea for Palestine to be free. I'm not a fighter. I don't know how to use a weapon, but please, please hand down these words as though they're weapons to those after me. Remind the children that their voice should not be used for vengeance, but as resistance, that the only terror that they carry is their memory, that those tanks and army jeeps will soon no longer be the reason Gaza continues to weep, and that she will instead look into the eyes of those sheep, not forgetting that this land is hers to keep. Please. Remind them that each olive branch destroyed will be written down in our history, that they exist beyond these fences and tragedies. And lastly, please, please give them my voice. Let them be the echo of the words I never had the chance to say. For I was met with bullets to my teeth, and I still crushed them away. Have them stand firm and tall. Look the soldiers behind the fences in the eyes and say, even with our lights out and homes made of wood, Gaza never fell, for you never stood. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. My name is Maryam Abu Ghazale, and I am one of the keynote speakers. And you're probably wondering why you can't see me, and that is because, unfortunately, due to circumstances, I was not able to fly into Connecticut today. But I am happy to still be performing one of my pieces behind the scenes, and to be one of the keynote speakers today for a little bit. Growing up, I always grew up around the Palestinian struggle. You know, when I was a kid, the first thing that I was taught was Free Palestine. That was one of the things that I was just grown up to know. And as I grew older, I began to research more, and I grew a big passion for wanting to understand and help those who weren't receiving help. And alhamdulillah, through poetry, that was my way of giving back. And it's incredibly hard when writing to, form these words or at least do justice, which I don't believe I can even do, for those enduring pain every single day. And it's incredibly tiring, after 70 years to have to look people in the eye and tell them, our fight is not over, we still have so much to fight for. And you just see that they're so tired. But today I want every single one of you to remember to not take things for granted. That everything that we are given is a blessing. That those in Gaza right now who unfortunately are being bombed, are being gassed, that is not something we should overlook. We should not only care about Palestine when it's in the headlines. Palestine should always be the number one thing that is on our minds. Because our occupation, our tragedy, our tragic events, that's not something we can just forget. And so, through my piece, I wanted people to understand that we may not all be talented. We may not all have something to contribute. We're not doctors, not all of us at least. I don't know anyone in the crowd, but we're not all talented. But there are still things that you can give. You are never too young. You are never too old to make a difference. Because I can promise you, saying one thing, reminding the world that Palestinians are still fighting, is worth a hell of a lot more than 1,000 words. So today, appreciate those around you. And though it may be dark right now, remember that every single one of you here is one step closer to helping free Palestine. So I thank you all for listening to me. And again, I am really sorry I can't be here. I'm pretty sure it's really weird to just hear a voice and not see a figure. But I would like to thank everybody who has come out, and on behalf of Palestinians and Syrians, because I am from both countries, thank you for your support, and inshallah we'll reunite and meet when there's a free Palestine and the siege on Gaza ends. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
We wake up in the morning and wash our hands with warm water. We go into the fridge and grab a drink and put a piece of bread in the toaster. We drive to school and walk into classrooms flooded with recessed lighting. Temperature placed at the perfect degree. We continue throughout the day, turning on lights, listening to music, and possibly even running on a treadmill. Our everyday mundane tasks revolve around electricity. So what if it was all gone? In Gaza, the current state is 3 to 4 hours of electricity after a 16-hour blackout. We turn the lights off tonight as a representation of that. Living in a community without consistent electricity produces its own pressures and uncertainty. Mundane tasks such as laundry or even drinking water can become a privilege. 95% of the water in Gaza is unfit to drink. And even non-drinkable water is hard to come by. With 50% of the population receiving water for 8 hours every 4th day, 30% every 3rd day, and 20% every 2nd day. The siege on Gaza has existed for 10 years, and in 2020 the UN will declare Gaza unlivable. Knowing how slow the UN works, I think we can probably all come to the conclusion that in 2018, the current state of Gaza is unlivable. Al-Durra Children's Hospital has drastically reduced its services, meaning that kids who need surgeries will not receive them. Meaning that the intensive care unit cannot run its artificial devices and drug dosage devices for round-the-clock care. Patients needing dialysis will not receive the proper treatment cycles. Solutions have been offered by international bodies such as Turkey, where they offered to bring ships onto the seas in order to generate some electricity. But the Israeli government refused this because Gaza is still under occupation. So what do? The first real understanding is understanding the privilege that we live with. Every day, the luxuries that we indulge in. It's not something to be ashamed of, but rather to be conscious of. Turning off the lights, for us, should be a symbolism of the rights that we have attained as citizens. And tonight, I ask you to open your ears, open your hearts, and open your eyes to the story. And allow yourself to be connected with those who you can't see, but know that you're there.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. It is my honor to introduce you our keynote speaker. Jihad Abul Salim is from Gaza, where he lived most of his life. In Gaza, Jihad finished his undergraduate degrees in administration and Hebrew language from Al-Azhar and the Islamic universities. He volunteered and worked with a number of youth groups, initiatives, and civil society organizations in fields related to youth and women empowerment, popular education, Palestinian national reconciliation, BDS, and advocacy against the siege. His writings appeared in Al Jazeera English, Mondo Ice, and Palestine Square. And he recently contributed to a book on Gaza titled Gaza as a Metaphor. Jihad is currently a PhD student at the History Department at NYU, where he studies Arab and Palestinian intellectual history in the first half of the 20th century. If you could all join me in welcoming Jihad.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here, and big thanks to the organizers of this great event. I don't think there has been ever a time when conversation about Gaza is more timely and urgent like these days. So I really appreciate you all coming here and showing support to our fellow sisters and brothers in Gaza and all of Palestine. And I really appreciate you all. And so basically, I was invited to give this talk way before the current events unfolded in Gaza. As you know, starting March 30th, the events of what Palestinians in Gaza call the Great March of Return, or the Great Return March, started on March 30th, commemorating the Land Day, and also starting a series of sit-ins and demonstrations across the armistice line between the Gaza Strip and what is today the State of Israel, where Palestinians from Gaza are going to demand their legitimate right to return to their countries, to their towns, villages, and cities in the land that was occupied in 1948. So I tried to, in light of the current developments, I tried to include a few anecdotes on the current events. So please bear with me. I end up always doing the depressing part. I mean, there was that great Arwood. So in Gaza, entire families sit in the darkness of their living room with candles generating the only light. Dozens of families have lost loved ones in house fires. Propane is scarce, and small generators are unsafe and hard to come by. They are usually smuggled through tunnels and poorly made. One of my college professors lost 3 children, a 14-year-old and 8-year-old twins, after their generator exploded and set their house on fire. Gaza residents face so much hardship and pain. just to secure one of life's basic necessities. When the electricity goes out, like the brief moment that we just went through, the silence is deafening. Everything grinds to a halt. Refrigerators, televisions, hospital equipments, water pumps and fans. Modern life stops. The quiet allows us to imagine what the world was like before we were immersed in the noise of car horns and the hum and buzz of modern machines. But later, the quiet is replaced by a storm of sound as generators whir and screech back to life. I will never forget the afternoon when I asked my father how long he thought the blockade would last. "A few months, my son, a few months, it won't take long," he answered. A few months ago, more than a decade since the Israeli blockade of Gaza was implemented, I spoke with my father again and I reminded him of what he said that day. We were sitting in the backyard of our house, which my family built in Gaza between 1995 and the year 2000. So we were sitting, and this was a few months after the siege started. So I asked him, I reminded him on the phone the other day, "Father, remember when you said it would last for a few months?" He got silent. I could practically feel his sorrow and grief through the phone. He said, "I don't know how many 10 years are there in one's life," he answered, crushed by the naivete of his statement all these years ago. How is it acceptable that in 2018, Gaza's residents, including my own family, have to spend so much of their time worrying about water, light, and food? What justifies a policy that causes toddlers, like my young brother, to soak in sweat during the night and place their cheeks on the cool tiled floor to escape the heat of Gaza's nights? No peace can come from forcing thousands of people to wait until dawn for their weekly share of water, while on the other side of the border, Israelis take dips in swimming pools and enjoy unlimited access to fresh water. Nowadays, if you ask Palestinians in Gaza how they are doing, they might answer, "Alive, عايشين," but due to the lack of death, من قلة الموت. This commonly used expression captures the dreadfulness of everyday life in Gaza. Every second in Gaza under Israel's blockade, where water and medical care are luxuries, is tainted by tragedy. Every time a family cannot afford to put food on the table, every time a house fire claims yet another victim, every time a cancer patient cannot acquire life-saving treatment or another desperate person ends their life, the horror of the blockade comes into full view. So long as Israel maintains control over Palestinian lives, but denies them their basic rights and freedoms, it cannot call itself a democracy. So this was most of the part I wrote before the Gaza Return March. And basically, when I write about Gaza, I try to balance two themes: tragedy and agency. And of course, the resilience of my people in Gaza, our people, our sisters and brothers, is part of their agency, of their willingness, of their steadfastness in face of the siege over the past 11 years. But I added the next part, which I will read in a bit, after the Great March of Return started. Because the Great March of Return stands for a moment when Palestinians in Gaza decided that they have answers and they want to seek them. So over the past few days, Israel deployed brutal force against the protesters of the Gaza Return March. Drones that spray tear gas. This is a new great Israeli invention introduced to humanity. Drones, snipers, attack dogs, and tear gas were few of the tactics the Israeli forces used. By 2 hours ago, 22 Palestinians were killed and over 1,400 were injured. 777 were shot by live ammunition. Their crime? They marched for their lives and freedom and for their rights. Today, there are nearly 5 million Palestinian refugees, with 1.3 million forced to live in 8 refugee camps in the Gaza Strip. They make up 70% of 2 million Palestinians trapped under a siege imposed by Israel, now in its 11th year. Indeed, for Palestinian refugees, the right of return is not merely a question of politics, international law, and history, but is also one that is deeply tied to their day-to-day lives. The reason why people are trapped in Gaza is basically and simply because they were expelled from their homes in 1948. The majority of them are refugees. The right of return impacts Palestinians in Gaza in myriad ways, from freedom of movement and economic mobility to where they can work and occasionally who they can marry. Thus, for them, the Nakba of 1948 and the yearning to return home are not some remnant of a distant event from a bygone past, but rather an everyday reality. The ongoing humanitarian crisis in Gaza further galvanized the masses to participate in the march, which we are witnessing these days. Hospitals are running out of important medical supplies, and patients living with chronic illnesses are caught between a collapsing health sector and the inability to pursue treatment abroad. An estimated 97% of Gaza's aquifer is polluted, and access to clean water is less than the minimum recommended by the World Health Organization. The seashore has been turned into a toxic swamp as Gaza's sole power plant could no longer support sewage treatment before it is pumped into the sea. Unemployment hovers around 50%, and poverty stands at 70%. All of these conditions are impacting a population where the largest age group is those below 24 years old. This debilitating reality was not an option Palestinian refugees willingly chose. All they wanted to do was to return to their homes. Simple demand. What they were not expecting was that their exodus would be prolonged for 7 decades, and that they would be subjected to condescending efforts to void their right to return. Many attempts were made by regional and international actors to resettle the refugees either inside or outside Gaza. Palestinians resisted such attempts and emphasized that their desire to return to their homeland is not a product of irrational rejection of any peaceful settlement on their part, but rather a commitment of a people who are strongly tied to their land and heritage, and who refuse to live in a world where state boundaries and demographic realities are dictated through a barrel of a gun. The Gaza Strip itself, as I mentioned earlier, is a product of a long history of war. If you're not familiar with the history, before 1948, prior to the establishment of the State of Israel, the area of Mandate Palestine was composed of administrative districts, قضاءات أو قضاء مجموعة من الأقضية. Each district had no actual borders. The borders were just meant to be administrative on the map. Prior to 1948, there was no such a thing as a Gaza Strip. In fact, the Gaza district, in which the current Gaza Strip lies on a small portion of its total area, the Gaza district was one of the largest administrative districts in mandatory Palestine, with a total area of 440 square miles. Most of the refugee population in the Strip today used to live in the cities, towns, and villages of the Gaza district and the surrounding areas. It was in 1948 that 200,000 refugees, mostly from the Gaza district and the nearby towns and villages, sought refuge in what would become the Gaza Strip after, adding to the already existing population of 100,000 Palestinians who lived there. Their descendants today constitute the 2 million Palestinians trapped in Gaza. These people were destined to live and die in this new area, this new region called the Gaza Strip, a tiny strip of land that remained from a lost homeland. Understanding the historical context in which the Gaza Strip with its current problems and crises emerged is key to making sense of Gaza's present reality. And this is important for us as people who do Palestine work when we talk about Gaza. We cannot talk about Gaza unless we refer to this context, to this historical context. The central element of this historical context is the Nakba, the catastrophe of 1948. As this was the moment of spatial and territorial rupture experienced by most of the refugees in Palestine and Gaza. In this sense, the Nakba is not history relegated to the past, but history lived in the present, in the narrow alleys of the crowded refugee camps, in the faces of those who leave their humble houses every morning to receive their food packages, in the barefoot children who play soccer on Gaza's beach, and in the lands of depopulated villages just beyond the fence along which Palestinians in Gaza are protesting these days, and that are still visible from the rooftops of Gaza's refugee camps. Every night, when it's nighttime in my town, we look to the north and we see the lights of Asqalan, called Ashkelon today. And we're sitting on the balconies, on the roofs of our houses, and we contemplate at our reality in Gaza. What are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to forget? No. The logic of using violence and discipline to create political realities has been something that has been rejected by Palestinians all along. Or otherwise the world would become a jungle. This is what Palestinians are standing for. The Nakba is still present in Gaza, not only by the continuation of the state of refuge, but also by the continuity of the rupture it caused. Today, if we open the news, we watch the reports, we hear about clashes. On Fox News, they said that Palestinians started throwing stones at Israeli soldiers, and then Israeli soldiers responded, fired at them, so that 20 Palestinians died. As if throwing some stone from across the fence that has been, that is not only a physical barrier, but also it's a scar in history, a scar on the face of history, and a scar on the face of the land, and what it means for us as Palestinians. So it's no surprise that the organizers of the current march chose the barbed wire border area instead of Gaza's main square to protest. To protest the siege, to protest electricity, to protest lack of water, to protest their inability to travel. It's no surprise that they chose the wire, the fence. In their view, the barbed wire fence is not only a scar that cuts through the land, but also a reminder that they cannot move freely, let alone return home. While any substantial achievement in the near future for this march's organizers or any other effort seems far-fetched, this current movement in Gaza indicates a revival of civil struggle among young Palestinians as a way forward. And of course, like we see here in America, where young people are protesting the murder of our African American sisters and brothers, where young people are protesting the issue of gun control. These are issues that, for young people in Gaza who were born even after the year 2000, who are protesting now at the border, it does seem that, like the political elites here, unable to fathom what this moment means, Israel too seems bewildered by the marchers in Gaza, and its violent response and violent reaction only shows the assumptions, the racist assumptions upon which the colonial logic of Israel is built. Punish them, cut electricity, cut water, and then they will forget and move on. Maybe they'll disappear. This is what Palestinians are standing against. The Israeli violent response is an all too predictable outcome of the colonial mindset that has informed how Israel treats Palestinians. In this mindset, Palestinians are inferior, violent, hateful, and thus could never pursue civil nonviolent struggle, let alone be informed by the struggles of Mandela, MLK, Gandhi, and those are names that have been echoing across the encampments and tents that the Gaza marchers have established near the Gaza border these days. This approach that Palestinians are pursuing now is intended in Gaza, is intended at showing the world that there is a tragedy there, but at the same time that the people, despite 11 years of siege, despite 3 wars where hundreds of people were killed, entire families, the records of entire families were wiped out from the records of the civil administration. Can you imagine? The civil administration would dispose of the entire records of a father and a mother and a grandfather and a grandmother and children, entire family. Entire memory was wiped out after their houses were bombed in 2013. So tragedy, siege, no electricity, no water, no access to the outside world, but also agency, resistance, resilience, strength. And here comes our part. What do we do? More and more people are joining the efforts to advocate for Palestinian freedom, including by participating in the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. More and more people are pressuring their policymakers and representatives. In Chicago, where I just came from today, we're organizing an action tomorrow on which we're going to call upon our elected representatives to do 3 things: to condemn the killing of protesters in Gaza, to work to end the blockade of Gaza, and urgently address the crisis of Palestinian refugees. What Gaza did over the past few days was that it brought back, it re-centered the notion of the right of return and its relevance to bringing justice to the injustices that Palestinians are going through. And before I end, my friend Ahmed here, who I really appreciate him, working on helping me get here and have this great opportunity and platform to talk to you guys tonight, mentioned that he would, that you guys would like to hear a few personal anecdotes from me. And I left Gaza in 2013. It took me 7 months just to get my paperwork from the U.S. consulate in Jerusalem and then travel through the Rafah crossing border between Gaza and Egypt. 7 long months. And since then, I haven't been able to go back to Gaza to see my family. When I left, my younger sister was 13 years old. Now she's almost 18. She was born in 2000. And I generally don't like to talk about my personal experience because it always gets dwarfed by the great sacrifices of my people. But it's always important, like our colleague here earlier mentioned, to remember that we here in this part of the world, we have a lot of things that we can do, and the privileges that we have here, that we have access to. I myself think about electricity and hot water as the privileges still, sometimes at night I sit in the living room of my apartment and I think, oh, when is the electricity going to disappear? But But these are things that once we are reminded by, and once we think about the struggles of our people in Gaza, who have 4 hours of electricity a day, who shower twice a week, who put decent meals on the table twice a week, who are barely surviving, and now they go and surprise the world by this great energy, beautiful organizing on the border. Forget about mainstream Western media. If you go to independent local Palestinian social media pages, you see other amazing aspects of the protest movement there. People singing, doing dabka, arts, horse racing, all sorts of things. So one thing that I myself, even as a Palestinian who comes from this part of the world, who lived there for 2 decades, and as someone who today is entrusted by conveying the message of the people of Gaza, I humbly stand here today and, I'd like you to always think about whenever you're faced by hardships, in your organizing work, in your activist work, and even in your personal, on the personal level, exams, papers, assignments, deadlines, all these hurdles of daily life. Just to remind ourselves of the struggles that these people have been going through, of the challenges they've been facing, and how they amazingly overcome these challenges and always show us that no matter how hard it is, we always shall overcome. Thank you very much.
Okay, masal khair, assalamu alaikum. How's everybody doing? Good. Wonderful. So, let me understand first of all, I walked in a little bit late, I missed some of the stuff, but let's have another crazy big hand for all the performers tonight. Alia and Mariam, who gave the spoken word. We have with the keynote. Oh, Freedom Dipke. Where's Freedom Dipke? They still here? Yes. Freedom Dipke performed. We performed together at Carnegie Hall one time, man. These guys are great. So I am so happy to be here. Let me understand who's in the room tonight, though, before we start. So by round of applause, clap if you are Arab. Clap, clap, Arab. All right. Are you recording me, man?
Yes, for my friend.
For your friend is not. What if I curse, though? No, I won't curse. I won't curse, sir. I promise. The guy with the beard is right in the front. Scares the hell out of me. Okay. Arabs. Okay, so do we have Syrians? Oh, okay, good. Lebanese? Okay. Egyptian? All right. How about other Northern Africa? Tunisia, Morocco. What are you? Morocco? Naam? Maghrib, ya hala. Yeah, are you related to this one? Are you guys related to each other? Okay. All right, wonderful. And then any Sudani, Somali? Naam? Kenya, like Obama. All right. Kenya. All right, and then we have any like Khalijis? Oh, really? What kind are you? Kuwait? All right, welcome. And then, okay, good. Yemeni? No? Okay, how about Palestinians? My people? Any of those here tonight? Okay, good. And then I see some like South Asia. Is that correct? Am I correct about that? South Asian, Indian, Pakistani? Wait, which one are you clapping for? Pakistani? Okay, all right. And is there Indian too? Okay, cool. And then Bangladesh? All right, I come from Michigan. We got a big Bangladeshi. All right, cool. And then any Latinos? Yes? Don't worry, calm down. I'll get to all of the white people. What kind of Latina are you? Colombiana. Okay. All right, good. And then black people? Like black American people? Hey! What are you cheering? There's one guy. What's your name, sir? Matt? Okay, good. And then just like, okay, you're Bosnian, you said? Okay, Bosnian, almost, that's almost Arab, almost. And then just, how about just regular white people? Just regular born white people? You? What's your name? Be quiet, please, huh? Jordan? So you stole that name from us, Jordan, that's one of ours. It's one of our countries. Are there any Jordanians? No, they're Palestinians. All right, great. Well, I know I missed somebody, so oh, sorry. نعم؟ ما انا قلت فلسطينية، من الغزاوية فلسطينية بدناش نفارق، الغزاوية فلسطينية مش هيك؟ طيب. That was just a fight between me and the Arab guy. You got all that? That's fine. We used our hands a lot, and I cut something in the air, and it was over. All right, well, listen, I'm very happy to be here tonight in UConn. I was here like 3 or 4 years ago, so hopefully nobody was here when I was here 3 or 4 years ago. I'm so happy to be here tonight again. The SJP and the stuff that you guys are doing here is unbelievable, the work that you're doing across. I get to perform for SJPs around the country, and I'm always amazed how amazing the work is that everyone's doing, but I'm never amazed that it's almost always led by very strong women. I'm never amazed by that. And some men did a great job. So I live in Dearborn, Michigan. I don't know if anybody ever heard of Dearborn, Michigan. By the way, people still with their backs towards me, please turn around. I don't like with their back towards me. Yeah, turn around, turn around. I don't care if you're eating, turn around. I live in Dearborn, Michigan. Now, I don't know if you've heard about Dearborn, Michigan. Dearborn, Michigan is like, that's where all the Arabs are. It's like Arab Disneyland. Everything is there. That's where I live. That is not where I grew up, though. I grew up outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in this little suburb outside of Philly. Everybody was white. Everybody. Everybody. Everybody was Jordan. Everybody was white where I grew up. Look at me, I was the darkest person in my school, okay? Everybody was white. I always knew that I was different. You know, my dad spoke funny, we smelled like garlic. We ate leaves from the backyard, you know. I knew we were different. My best friend who lived across the street was a little white kid named Tommy. He was my best friend. We hung out with each other all the time. But I knew we were different. Our moms were different. I don't know what's wrong with you Arab moms. I don't know what's wrong with you. Arab moms, they hate sleepover. She never let me sleep over anywhere. I said, Mom, let me sleep over Tommy's house. What is wrong with our house? Sleep here, get all your friends and come and sleep. And I grew up Palestinian. Now, for those of you who don't know, we Palestinians, we are raised a little bit different than everybody else. We are raised to be professional protesters. From a young age, I remember sometimes we wake up at 7 a.m. in Philadelphia, and by 10 a.m. we were in New York City, and we were protesting. And Palestinians, we don't care if it rhymes or if it doesn't rhyme. We just protest like 1, 2, 3, 4. We don't want your war. 5, 6, 7, 8. Free Palestine. You know, we don't give a shit. We just say it. And we get out there, and we're raised different. We're raised with that stuff. And I never really knew how different I was. See, we're raised on politics and on history and all this. I never really knew how different I was. Till one year it was Christmas time, and Tommy's mom took me and Tommy to the mall. And we waited in line for an hour. And finally it was our turn, and Tommy went first. And he sat on Santa Claus's lap, and Santa said to him, "What do you want for Christmas, little boy?" And Tommy said, "Let me have a bike." And Santa said, "Okay." And then it was my turn. And that's when I realized that I was a little different. Because I sat on Santa Claus's lap. And Santa said to me, "What do you want for Christmas, little boy?" And I looked at him with my little Palestinian eyes, and I said, enforcement of UN resolution 242, allowing us. We just have messed up dreams. You ask a little white kid, "What do you want to be?" Policeman, fireman, doctor. Ask a little Palestinian kid, "What do you want to be?" Free. That's all. Oh. Dude, whenever I come to campuses, people go, "Oh, because you're millennials, you don't know if it's okay to laugh or not." Oh. I go to college shows. I learned this about. I'm not, I'm a little bit older than a millennial. I'm just on the cusp. I'm like older than millennial. Millennials. Let me explain to you how a comedy show works. I'm not sure if you all know how a comedy show works. I've learned that millennials don't clap. They snap. Yeah. No snapping at a comedy show. Only clapping, although I did learn about some of this. I learned this is like clapping. 2 of them is like loud clapping. And if you raise your hand and you put your head down, that's like a standing ovation. It's really good. But no, there's a comedy show. And it was weird growing up with all these white people. Now, like Muhammad said, I also made a movie called We're Not, it's about Arab Americans, and it's called We're Not White. Now let me explain that to you, white people. Jordan, let me explain that to you. Let me explain how this works, okay? I know it sounds mean, it's not mean, all right? As everyone might know, every 10 years, and it's been in the news lately, that the United States conducts a census. And they go out, they count everybody in the country. And when they count people, they ask you your race. And on college applications and all that kind of stuff, ask your race. And everybody has a box on the census form. Everybody. Like Fiji, Guam, Samoa, all these places have boxes, but Arabs, we don't have a box on the census. Everybody else has a box. I was filling out this form, all these boxes. One box says Native American. It's supposed to say Native American. It says American Indian. You're not supposed to say American Indian. You're supposed to say Native American. But I know why they don't say Native American. They don't want to confuse too many people. Like I think Donald Trump thinks he's a Native American. There's a box that says Asian. Now Arabs, we're Asian. But we all know they don't mean us when they say Asian, because they even give you like examples. Korean, Japanese, Filipino, Vietnamese, Chinese, which sounds like the coolest food court ever. But I didn't check that box. There's a box that says black, African American, or Negro. They still say Negro on this form, I don't know why. I almost checked the black box. Because Arabs were just like black people. We get profiled. We get blamed for stuff that we don't do. We scare the hell out of white people. We have big families and Sunday dinner, okay, Matt? We do all that kind of stuff. We have really big families. The way you know you're one of us is if your family's so big that you're older than your uncle. You know, like if you ever took your uncle to Chuck E. Cheese, you're one of us. I didn't check that box. There was only a couple boxes left. A box that says white, and one box that says other. But it doesn't even say other. If you read the census form, it says some other race. Kind of like we don't really give it, we don't care. Just put it in here. And a lot of people did that, and a lot of people told us to do that. Check some other race and write in an Arab country. But if you check other and you write in an Arab country, Palestine, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, Egypt, whatever, do you know what the United States government does with that form? Do you know what they do with that form? Do you know what they do with that form? Trash it. They don't trash it, no. They don't give it to the FBI. They actually file it with white people. Did you know that? Yes. According to the federal government, we're white. Jordan? According to the federal government, we are you. Scary, right? But we're not white. We're not white. We deserve our own box. Don't you Arabs agree? We deserve our own box? Yes? You agree? I want to start a rally right here tonight at the Rome Ballroom in Storrs, Connecticut. We are not white. We deserve a box. We deserve it because I grew up around white people. We're different. We're just different. I learned a lot about white people when I was growing up. We're different. I don't know if Arabs, South Asians, all my brown people, be careful. I don't know if you know this. Do you know that if you go to your white friend's house and his mom asks you if you're hungry, if you say no, she actually doesn't bring you anything to eat. And they start eating around you. It's the weirdest shit I've ever seen in my life. Where you said you weren't hungry. It's crazy. I learned a lot about white people. I don't know if you know. Do you know that sometimes white people go to the grocery store, they come home, they put their groceries away, then they take their bags and they throw them away. Not in my house. Not in my house. In my house, there's a bag full of bags. Goes a little space between the refrigerator and the Walmart. Like that. We're different. We do business different. I think a white guy walks into a store, gets $1 off something, thinks he got a deal. It doesn't work like that with us. I've seen my dad walk into a store before. How much do you want for that? $20? Okay, fine. I'll give you $5. We don't think anybody should be able to make money. I remember when I was a kid, I went to go get a shirt for school, and I went into the store with my dad. I said, Baba, I like this shirt. He said, how much? Jordan, this is Arabic for how much? Okay, one hand, how much? Two hands, you're dancing. Okay, one hand, how much? He said, how much? And then I have the dad, does anyone else have the brown dad who like feels the fabric on the shirt like he's a fabric expert? Starts feeling the fabric on the shirt, my dad goes, this is very good fabric. I'm like, you grew up in a refugee camp, okay? You don't know what fabric feels like. And then he said the same thing every Arab dad says. Do you know how much it cost them to make this shirt? $3, maybe $4. So let's give them $5. I'm like, this is Macy's. You can't do that here. I get asked to go and see a lot of stuff for Arabs around the country. I got asked to go and see an auction, a charity auction for a bunch of Arabs in New Jersey like 5 years ago. Auction. I explain the concept of an auction to Arabs. They don't understand this stuff. These people have been bargaining their whole life. The whole concept didn't even make sense to them. They're like, wait a second. We are fighting to make the price higher? Like, this doesn't make any sense to them at all. I got on stage and I was like, the bidding on this item starts out at $1,000. Some Arab said, $400. I said, no. I don't think you understand the way this works. We bargain different. We bargain. I see white people when they bargain. White people kind of bargain. We bargain different. The way we bargain is shameless, man. We bargain different. We bargain different. I've seen see, white people bargain with logic. We bargain with emotion. White people bargain logically. They walk into the Mercedes dealership, they bargain logically. Look, you tell me how much this car cost you, I'll pay a little bit more, you'll be happy, I get a good deal, everything's fine. Not us. We bargain with emotion. I've seen Arab guys walk into the Mercedes dealership. They have money, but they're not going to pay. It's like against their culture to pay what it says, but they use emotion. Look, I want this Mercedes, okay? But if I pay you the price it says on the car, okay, you know what will happen? Do you see my children? If I pay you this price, I will not have money and they will starve and they will die. Is that what you want for me to have this car? And they all close it with the same line. All the Arabs, they all close it with the same line. I always see them. You all have the same line. If you give me a good deal, I will tell everybody. If you give me a good deal, everybody from Gaza will come and buy Mercedes from you. I know everybody. We're different. White people brag about how much they paid for something. Top quality. I paid for this top price, top quality. I feel like I'm very good. Not us. We brag about how little we pay for something. I just got brand new BMW 2018, fully loaded, every option, $2,000. You're like, don't you think there's something wrong with it? No, it's better. We're just a different group of people. We're not white. I wish we were. I always tell people I'm Palestinian. That's the first thing out of my mouth. Someone said, what are you? I say, I'm Palestinian. And I always tell them I'm Palestinian like Jesus. Because Jesus was one of us. All right? White people? I gotta tell this to my fellow Americans all the time. They think Jesus had blonde hair and blue eyes and he's from Texas, and that's not true. Jesus was one of us, right, Palestinians? Right? He's one of us. He's one of us. We should use him more. We should claim him more. Anything that has to do with Palestine should have a picture of Jesus on. The logo of SJP should be a picture of Jesus. That's it. He's the most famous man in the history of the world. We should use him more. We don't use them enough. That's what I like to tell Palestinians, like Jesus, man. I gotta explain this to people. And I know we're not white. I know they don't. They think Jesus belonged to them. I know we're not white because I watch the news. Now, for those of you who don't know, Arabs, we watch the news all the time. All right, it's like a social activity for us. We call our friends over, we make popcorn, we make coffee, and we watch the news because we're on it. Alright, that's like our TV show. It's like our Kardashian show. It's the only thing you turn on, you're going to see us all the time. I watch the news. And I know we're not white because I see how they talk about white people on the news. And I see how they talk about us. And it's not the same. You know, a white guy commits a crime, they have different words for him. Depressed, deranged, delusional, disturbed. All these nice D words they use for white people. It's different. There was a guy who killed 50 people from a hotel room in Las Vegas. And CNN got on the news the next day and they said he likes country music. A kid in South Carolina walked into a church, killed 9 black people, told the cops that he wanted to start a race war. And the senator from South Carolina said, he's just a little crazy. A kid down in Florida killed 17 people in the school. And CNN got on the news the next morning and said he was very depressed. You know what they call us? They don't call us disturbed, deranged, depressed country music fans. You know what they call us? I know you're all thinking terrorists. Yes, they use the word terrorist, but they use another word too. They use this word, mastermind. They always call us masterminds. That's way too much credit. Please don't eat that. Please don't eat that. Don't eat stuff that's going to make noise. Masterminds, man. That's what they call us all the time. Masterminds. There was a guy in New York, one of us, rented a van in his own name. Drove down the street, ran over 10 people, jumped out of the van with a fake gun. Ran around, got shot by the police, got arrested, and CNN said, they have caught the masterminds. This guy's he's not a mastermind. He's an idiot. But that's what they say about us. See, I watch the news way too much, man. See, the news is not news anymore. The news is news for like 5 minutes, then it's experts and analysis for the other 55 minutes. Just news, then they have all these experts on this. And here's the weird thing. If there's a story about black people, the experts are black. If there's a story about Mexicans, the experts are Mexican. But if there's a story about Arabs or Muslims, for some reason, the experts are white. And they don't know what the hell they're talking about. I was watching the news a few years ago. Remember a few years ago when those masterminds went into Paris and they killed those cartoonists for drawing pictures of Muhammad? You remember? They killed the cartoonists. Remember? And they had a video of these guys on the streets in Paris, and they were walking around, and they were holding their guns, and they were yelling out in Arabic, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, over and over again. And CNN was Wolf Blitzer and 3 white guy experts. And one of them is named Bob. And Bob's an expert on Arabs. Why? Because Bob was in the CIA for 35 years, so he spied on us, basically. So he's an expert on Arabs and the Arabic language. And Bob said, well, we have to be very careful when they say, la 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 la. Because la 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 means I will die for Allah. Now, Matt, La ilaha illallah does not mean I will die for Allah, alright? It means there's no God, small g, but God, big G, alright? It's like a profession of faith. It's like saying, oh my God, alright? Arabs say it all the time. In fact, if you say it 3 times in a row, you become a Muslim. Go ahead. It doesn't have the word I, it doesn't have the word will, die, I will die. No combination of these words exists in it whatsoever. Arabs say it all the time. We say it all the time, right? Don't we say it all the time? We say it all the time, right? Actually, Matt, if you and I are walking down the street and the weather was beautiful, we might look into the sky and say, La ilaha illallah. In fact, if we were driving and we almost got into a car accident, but then we turned and we escaped and we were safe, we might say, La ilaha illallah. In fact, Matt, if you and I were walking down the street in Miami and 2 tall, beautiful blonde women in bikinis walked by, we might say, la 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 la. Was that your girlfriend? Okay, sorry. Well, that's not allowed here. Anyway. Okay? She's either your friend or your wife. You want to experience our culture. I know I watch the news all the time. I see how they talk about us. I remember back in 2008 when Barack Obama was running for president. I voted for Barack Obama twice because he's a Muslim. And so, I mean, Hussein. John McCain was running against him. John McCain was having a town hall meeting, and some white lady walked up to the microphone. She looked very nice, they all do. And she walked up to the microphone, and she said, I can't trust Obama, he's an Arab. And McCain grabbed the microphone from her and said, no ma'am, he's a decent family man. This is how they talk about us on the news. I watch the news all the time. And I was watching news 2 years ago, and I saw them arrest a kid in Texas for a clock. You remember this stuff? Clock. Now, let's clear up a couple things about this kid. His name is Ahmed Muhammad, which doesn't help, especially if you live in Texas. But he had a clock, man, that's it. A clock, okay? They tried to accuse him of this crime called a hoax bomb crime. Now, I'm also a law professor, so let's talk about what a hoax bomb crime is. Okay, we'll do a little of this. A hoax bomb crime is like if you hold up something that's not a bomb, and you say, this is a bomb. Jordan, this is just a demonstration, okay? You don't gotta freak out. You say, this is a bomb. That's a crime in America, and that should be a crime in America, obviously. You shouldn't be able to trick somebody into thinking that you have a bomb. But it doesn't work for little Ahmed, because Ahmed was walking around school all day saying, this is a clock. He's just a nerd who likes his clock. Alright? And Fox News said, Fox News, don't watch Fox News if you don't have to, okay? I mean, I just watch it for like scientific reasons. But don't watch Fox News if you don't have to. Fox News said, well, maybe they thought he had a bomb. Maybe they thought he had a bomb, so they had to arrest him because maybe they thought he had a bomb. But they didn't think he had a bomb. They didn't think he had a bomb. I know that they didn't think he had a bomb, because that's not what they do when they think you have a bomb. When they think you have a bomb, they evacuate the school, right? Right? When they think you have a bomb, they call in the bomb squad, right? They don't take you down to the principal's office with your bomb to talk to the principal, all right? That's not the way it works, all right? And I'm an Arab, and I'm very familiar with bomb protocol, and that is not what they do. Maybe they treated him a little bit different because he was one of us. Maybe if he was like a 14-year-old white Christian kid named Dylan, they would not have thought he brought a goddamn bomb. So he got treated a little bit different because he was one of us. See, we see that all the time. I get weird reactions from people when I tell them I'm Palestinian. They never know what that is. I was in the airport a few years ago, and the flight was delayed. Not because of me, but the flight was delayed. And I went into the, you're alone in the airport, right? So I went into the airport bar, it's not called a restaurant. To have Coca-Cola. And there was a white guy sitting there, and he said to me, you're alone in the restaurant. He goes, what's your name? I said, Amr. He said, wow, that is an interesting name. Where are you from? I said, I'm from Michigan. He said, no, where are you from? This is what white people say when they want to find out where you're really from. So where are you from? I said, oh, sorry, I'm from. I apologize. I'm from Palestine. I'm Palestinian like Jesus. I'm from Palestine. He said, really? I said, yeah. He said, really? I said, yeah. I didn't say I was a unicorn. I said, I'm Palestinian. We're real. We're on the news. And he looked over both of his shoulders and he looked back at me and he said, that's really cool. I said, why? He said, because I hate Jewish people too. I said, hey man, that's racist. All right? It's racist of you to assume that I'm a racist because of my race. That's racist. He said, you mean you don't hate all Jewish people? I said, no man, I'm just saying that's really racist. No, we don't hate Jews. Are there any Jews here tonight? It's okay, you can raise your hand. Yes? What's your name? Evan? Evan, please, send a message to the world, okay? We don't hate Jews, all right? We get a bad rap in the news. People think we hate Jews. We do not hate Jews. You guys have an email list or something? Send a message out. We don't hate Jews. We have a complicated relationship, obviously, which is 70 years of occupation messes up the relationship a little bit. It's complicated. It goes on Facebook and say it's complicated. But we don't hate. We don't hate anybody. We don't. In Arabic, we call Jews Ulad Amna, which means our cousins, and we mean it. We're not being jerks or anything. We mean it. We mean it. We mean it. Of course, no. Every Palestinian, though, we gotta be careful, though. We're not racist, but we all have that one uncle who says stuff like it just comes out racist. It doesn't mean it. It just comes out weird because 70 years of occupation minutes ago. So it comes out. We're just like, you know, like you all have that one uncle. Like, listen, Habibi, I don't hate Jew as person. But when there is a lot, I'm like, no, that's racist. He doesn't mean it like that. It just comes out wrong. We're the same. We're the same, okay? We're the same. Hairy, big nose, crazy mom, same shit, same thing. The only difference is you are chosen by God, and we are chosen by the FBI. That's the only difference. That's the only difference. We don't hate, man. We don't hate. But it's hard growing up. 70 years of occupation, you got to deal with this Palestinian stuff all the time, and then we got to deal with our parents all the time. What do you guys call them here? Fathers? Father? Your parents' father? Is that the word you use? Father? In Michigan we say voter. Okay, whatever you say. It's hard. It's hard. It's definitely hard growing up with Palestinian parents. Let me tell you why. My dad, see, I don't know if you know this, Palestinians are the most successful people on planet Earth. We are the most successful people on planet Earth. We always succeed. We don't just work in the garage, we own the garage. We're not just a doctor at the hospital, we're the chief of staff of the hospital. We are the most successful people. And people always ask me, why are Palestinians so successful? I tell them very simple, it's not because we're related to Jesus or anything like that. It's because we don't have plan B. We cannot mess up and go back to our country. It doesn't work like that for us. And we work very hard, and we never ever go on vacation. And people say to me, why don't Palestinians go on vacation? I tell them it's very simple. We don't like to leave our house for more than 2 or 3 days. We remember what happened last time we did that. We're very successful. My dad was born in 1948 in Jaffa. When he was 1 month old, they became refugees, and he grew up in a refugee camp in Jordan. And just so that he could go to college, he had to finish first in high school, and he did. And just so that he could go from college to a master's degree, he had to finish first in college, and he did. And just so that he could go from a master's degree to a PhD, he had to finish first in his master's degree, and he did. And then he came to America, and he worked for the same company for 35 years, and he had a big house and nice cars, and isn't that a beautiful story? Isn't that a beautiful story? This is the Palestinian story, by the way. We come from nothing to everything, man. It's a beautiful, beautiful story. But, do you know how hard it is to be the son of this person? He's achieved everything. I can never impress him. I remember when I was a kid, I brought my test home from school. I said, Baba, here's my test. I got a 96. Where is the other 4? That's enough. Can't deal with these people. And they can't. Can I have my water? And they can't. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And they can't speak English. Trump's right about that. You guys got to learn English, man. What's your name, sir, from Gaza? Yeah. Abdul Jawad. And now?
They call me Abdul.
Abdul, that's what white people call you. Not in this room, sir. You are Abdul Jawad. Don't change your name for white people. Don't change your name for white people. All of you in here, don't change your name for white people. All right, a lot of you do that. You're not the only one. A lot of you do that. You're Muhammad, you become Mo for white people. You're Jamil, you become Jimmy for... Stop that shit. Stop it. Look, be proud of who you are. Don't change your name. We got to learn their names. Dylan, Connor, all that kind of shit. Don't change your name. Be who you are. If you're Muhammad, be Muhammad. If you're Fatima, be Fatima. If you're Jamil, be Jamil. If you're Mahmoud, be Mahmoud. If you're Jihad, be Joe. It's better for all of us. Just be Joe. We don't need to deal with that. Sorry, Jihad. Yeah, just be Joe. How long have you been in America, Abdul Jawad?
35 years.
35. How's your English getting? Better, finally? No.
It's worse.
It gets worse, right? 35 years. Are any of your family here?
Yeah,
Is that your daughter?
Yeah.
What's your name? Dania. This is your dad, Abdul Jawad? How's his P? Is it coming out? P. The letter P. Can you say it? The letter P? We don't have a P. Matt, Jordan, we don't have a P in there. There's no P, no letter P in there. We are the Palestinian people. We like to drink Pepsi, eat pizza, no pepperoni, because pepperoni is pork. Like, that's the way we talk. All right? You can't. It's embarrassing, okay? You guys gotta learn English. You can't walk around saying salt and pepper for 35 years, all right? It's embarrassing. You gotta learn English. You can't walk around saying America is the best country in the world. World, that's not how you say it. Okay? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That's not how you say it. I know that's how it looks, but that's not. English is a hard language. I feel bad for you. English is a hard language. It's a hard language. I always said the worst job for an Arab if he comes to America would be the person who leaves your confirmation number on the phone. This would be the worst job because they can't speak English. They make everything political for no reason. It would be the worst. Like, are you ready for your confirmation number? Okay, it's going to be A as in apple. B like Peter. No, B as in Peter, not B as in boy. Yeah, B as in Peter. Yeah. I said the B, not B. Yeah. Okay, then the letter O as in the occupation of the Palestinian people. Okay, then the letter H. H like H. H like hairy H. Okay, finally the number 6. 6! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. That's embarrassing. I know, 6. I know a sheikh in Michigan. He can't say 6. He always says sekes, but he doesn't say it because it sounds too much like, you know. So when he counts, it's very funny. He goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, astaghfirullah, 7, 8. There's no P in Arabic. No P in Arabic. I tried to be a good little American kid. I tried to be a good little white kid. I played baseball. It didn't help. Then my dad would try to support me. It didn't help, of course. He'd come to the game and be like, touchdown. I'm like, no, Bob. Those voters don't understand baseball. Arabs don't understand baseball. They understand one sport. Soccer. That's it. That's all Arabs understand. Soccer. My dad don't understand baseball. Doesn't understand it at all. He goes, Amr, I understand soccer. Very simple. Here there is goal. Here there is goal. You kick the ball in the goal. I understand hockey thing. You shoot that little thing into the goal. I understand basketball. You throw the ball into the goal. But baseball, where is the goal? I tried to explain it to him. I said, Baba, it's very simple, okay? It's very simple. Somebody throws a ball, you hit it, and then you run here, then you run here, then you run here, then you run back here, and when you get back here, you get a point, they call it a run, it's kind of like a goal. That's how baseball works. And he said, no. So they are already standing in the goal? This doesn't make sense to a refugee. Why would you run everywhere and just come back where you live? But he tried to learn baseball, he did, but there's no P in Arabic. He tried to learn baseball. One time, he looked up all the rules of baseball. Everything, all the terminology, everything. Then he came to my game with him and my 2 uncles. And they sat down and they cheered the whole time. And on the way home, I had to have a talk with them. I said, listen, Baba, Ammo, thank you for coming to the game, really, thank you. I appreciate the support. But it's pronounced pitch. You're supposed to hit the pitch. Smack the pitch. Yeah, my dad sounded like Eminem at all my baseball games. It's a hard life. Now, let me tell you the real reasons that I'm here tonight, okay? Because we got to go in a few minutes. Because we got to explain our culture to people. You know, we have something in our culture. Jordan, Matt, other white people. That's all other white people. Are there other white people? Yeah, there's a white kid in the back right there. There's a couple white people. Let me explain something about our culture, okay, guys? If you want to learn, that's why you came here tonight. Learn about our culture, right? Let me tell you something about our culture. We have something in our culture called start leaving. Let me explain how that works. All right? Everybody will be at someone's house. They're all sitting in this room called the salon. You have this room in your house, the salon. This is the room that like no one's ever allowed to go into, ever. Gets vacuumed every day for no reason. Covered in plastic. You know what room I'm talking about, right? Looks like a crime is about to happen in there all the time. All the men are sitting in the salon, And one of the men, who's a guest, looks at the man of the house, and he looks at him and he says, you know, it's getting late. It's getting late, we should go. And then the man of the house tells him a lie. No! Stay! That's a lie. Be careful. By the way, Arabs, brown people, be careful. You can't do this stuff with white people. They don't understand. All right? One time we had our white neighbor over our house when we were kids, and the white guy looked at my dad and he said, you know, it's getting late. We should go. And my dad said, no! Stay! And the white guy said, okay, all right. 10 minutes later, he's like, we really got to go. And my dad was, no, stay! And the white guy said, okay, fine. Okay. 10 minutes later, my dad freaked out. Get the hell out of my house! Don't you understand in our culture, when we say stay, it means go. Okay? You with me so far? Okay? And then the wife of the guy who tried to leave walks into the room, into the salon, and she looks at her husband and she says to him, Habibi, let's start leaving. Okay? Because that's how it works in our culture. You can't just leave. It's a process. How long does it take? 45 minutes? An hour? At least it takes a little while. You can't just leave. Stop. Be careful, by the way. White people don't do this. White people don't do this. You leave the room, you come back, you say, where's Jordan? He left. They just leave. They're very honest. They're different. They just leave. Start leaving. All right? And then about 10 minutes later, the mom sends the kid into the room to come talk to the dad. He says, Mama says she's ready to go. He says, go tell her like another 20 minutes. He's like the UN ambassador. He goes back. Start. Okay, start leaving. You understand? You understand? You understand? You understand this custom? You understand? All right? That's why there's still Palestinians in Palestine today. That's right, because the Israeli army came 70 years ago and they said, we are the Israeli army and you have to go. And the Palestinians said, okay, just let me start leaving, let me say bye to everybody. It takes a long time. Let me tell you the real reason I came tonight. The real reason I came tonight is for a couple of reasons. Number one, when there is anything to do with young Arab Americans and young Palestinian Americans and young Muslim Americans doing stuff on campus and doing stuff like the SJP, I want to make sure that I am here to support them and to make sure that all of you know that you have to support them every day of the week and keep working with them and keep... Let me tell you something. When I was in college, it wasn't that long ago, okay, calm down. But when I was in college, we had a group of Palestinians. Okay, we would never get any funding for anything. We would apply every year and never get $1 for funding, while the Zionist groups were getting tens of thousands of dollars. And I'm sure they still get more than we get on campus. But what we would do is this. We'd have a meeting, okay? And we would decide that we were going to go to like an event sponsored by the pro-Israel kids. Because they would be bringing in like ambassadors and commanders and all that kind of stuff. And we would go to their event. And we would wait until it was like a time to ask a question. And then we would get up and we would like ask a hard question. Okay? We were counter-protesters. And then I was at an event about 3 years ago at the University of Michigan. And there was a Palestinian speaker and 200 people listening to the Palestinian speaker. And there was a group of like white kids over here that just looked out of place. And when it was over, they got up and they asked him like tough pro-Zionist questions. And then I realized something. I said, wow, they are now the counter-protesters. See, things are changing. And the important thing to understand on campuses is that, you know, you're only here for a few years and you leave, but the truth is there's been decades of history of Palestinian activism on campuses. To the points where we were the only one, and then we were a few, and then we were counter-protesting, and then now there's a whole history to all of this stuff. And so you have to understand that when you keep doing what you're doing, and that means you have to keep pushing forward. Because maybe Palestine will be free tomorrow, but maybe we have to keep fighting for another 50 years, and that's okay. But we have to keep all this history and leadership going, and keep supporting all the amazing leaders that you have here on campus, like Maysan and Muhammad, and all these people doing this, and I'm sure I missed some people, and all these people doing this amazing things. Keep supporting them. That's the first reason that I came here tonight. The second reason that I came here tonight is very simple. When somebody asks me to come into a room full of young Arabs, I say yes. Because I am now 40 and single. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. I don't know if I want to get married, man. I don't know. Our culture talks about it like it's a good idea. They talk about it like it's an achievement. Oh, you got married. Congratulations. Getting married is not an achievement. Staying married, maybe, is an achievement. Getting a PhD is an achievement. Getting a master's degree, getting into medical school, getting into law school, that's an achievement. Writing a book, that's an achievement. Getting married, there's a lot of idiots who get married. There's no qualifications. I'm scared to get married. Who here is married? Are you married? Where is she? Did she leave? Was she sitting right there? She left? Where is she? Which one is she? Over there? How long have you been married? What are you looking at her for? How long have you been married? How long? 25 years? And this is what happens after 25 years? You sit on separate sides of the table? You know what I'm saying? I said, where's your wife? He says, over there somewhere. See, I see people who've been married for a long time, and it scares the hell out of me. Because I see how they talk to each other, how they talk about each other. And it's never good for the man. Never. All right? How long? You guys been married 25 years? What's your name, ma'am? Ish? Tahani? Tahani and Abdul Jawad? 25 years? That's a long time. That's a long time. I don't know. Abdul Jawad's like, yeah, I know, it's a long time. Here's the scariest thing about marriage, young people. I don't know if you know this. You know that it's forever. Forever. The sheikh doesn't tell you that. The priest doesn't tell you that. The rabbi, whoever marries you, they don't tell you that. It's in the fine print. Forever. See, here's what scares me. Abdul Jawad and Tahani. I see how people talk about each other, and it's never good for the men. We've never met each other before, right? We never met each other. But I know exactly how they talk about each other. If you ask them about how they met, are you cousins? No? Okay, well, that's one way. All right. No, it's okay. We marry cousins. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. You think it's weird? Well, go down to Alabama and see what white people do, okay? Marrying cousins is not a big deal. Although white people get confused when they come to our weddings. There's cousins, because white people ask questions at their weddings that you can't ask at our weddings. You can't ask this kind of question at our wedding. Are you with the bride or the groom? Yes. Who do you know here? Everybody. Everybody. Just a family reunion. I feel bad for white people when they come to our weddings too, because they come to our weddings, they're so confused when they come to our weddings. First of all, our weddings are way more. Go to a white wedding, it's different. They have like a speech, daddy-daughter dance, chicken dance, and they all go home. The whole thing lasts like 45 minutes. So when they come to our wedding, that's all they're prepared for. They don't take up the whole weekend for our, like we do. And they come to our weddings. I see white people when they come to our weddings, they're confused. First of all, they come at the time it says on the invitation. So immediately they're confused. They're like, wait a second, it says 6:30. This is March 17th. Where is it? But see, I've never met Abdul Jawad and Tahani, but I know exactly how they talk about each other. If you ask Abdul Jawad how he met Tahani, Abdul Jawad will say what men say. The first time I saw Tahani, she was the most beautiful girl I've ever seen in my life, ever, forever. And I knew I wanted to be with her forever. And you say to Tahani, Tahani, tell us about when you met Abdul Jawad. And Tahani will say what women say. Well, when I first met Abdul Jawad, I never thought I would be with somebody like that. But he grew on me like a disease. He grew on me, and here we are. That's scary. That's the best you can hope for. My mom and dad are freaking out that I'm not married. They have stopped, how can I say this nicely? They have stopped believing me about my status, if that makes sense. Yeah, she stopped believing me. She called me the other day, she goes, Amber, are you dating anybody? I said, no. She said, are you gay? It's okay, just tell me. But that wasn't the worst question. The worst question was the follow-up question. She said, are you gay? I said, no. She said, are you sure? That's a terrible question to get asked. Are you sure? Like she had evidence. Are you sure? Because I had this video and, I don't know. When I go to Palestine all the time, has anyone over here ever been to Palestine before? Yeah, it's okay, it's a comedy show. You can clap. Yeah, I've been to Palestine. Palestine's different. Palestine's different. Don't ask for directions if you're in Palestine. Everything in the whole country, dughri, straight, everything. I was in Ramallah, I said, how do we get to the theater? They said, dughri. I said, how do I get to the hotel? They said, no problem, dughri. And we wonder why the Israelis can find us all the time, We don't know how to tell people how to escape. Go run, dughri, and they find us. There's no security. I went into an internet cafe, I said, what's the internet password? I said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. I go to the next place, I said, what's the internet password? I said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. I go to the third place, I said, what's the internet password? I said, we change it a little bit. 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5. And we wonder why they can read our emails all the time. The kids are different. The kids in Palestine are smart, but they're too smart. It's weird, crazy, psycho-smart. Because 70 years of occupation. Politics dominates your life every day. They're too smart. I was in Jerusalem like 5 years ago, and this little 6-year-old Palestinian kid walks up and he goes, do you think that Barack Obama will get enough electoral votes to win election in 2000? I said, what the hell are you talking about? Go play soccer. Not like the kids in America. Kids in America are dumb. This is the dumbest country in the world. The dumbest. It's not me. The UN does studies. They find American kids rank last in everything. Reading, math, everything. We're dumb. Listen, if you want to understand any culture, watch their game shows. Anybody here ever Google or YouTube like a German or Japanese game show? These are two of the smartest countries in the world. German or Japanese. You ever Google them? You should. Go watch their game shows. It's like adults throwing jello at each other, walking through eggs. It's just dumb stuff because that's what a game show is. It's like an escape from your everyday reality. You want to just do something stupid. So you do like adult Chuck E. Cheese or something. So you just do something. What are American game shows? Say a letter and spell a word. Answer hard questions. We think when somebody's smart, that's amazing. We need to give them money. Our escape from reality is intelligence. You understand? We have a game show in America called Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? That's a game show. Now, for those of you who don't know how this game show works, I'm explaining to you. You go on the game show. You're an adult, by the way. You're an adult, okay? You go on the show. They ask you questions from the first grade. You're an adult. First grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade. If you answer all the questions from the fifth grade, you win $1 million. And guess what? Nobody wins. Nobody wins. That's America. If you want to be freaked out about America, let me explain this to you. Let me explain the statistic to you. There has been 250 episodes of Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? 2 winners. 2. Do you know who these 2 people are? I'll tell you who these 2 people are. One of them was the superintendent of schools for the entire state of Alabama. So she already knows the questions that are on the show. The second one was a Nobel Prize winner in physics. These are the 2 Americans capable of winning Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? Do you understand? You understand the problem that we have? Do you understand how bad it is in America? In America, if you're smarter than a fifth grader, they give you $1 million. In Germany, if you're smarter than a fifth grader, you go to the 6th grade. That's it. There's no prize. But this is the shit we got to deal with. Because we don't have any concept of like history or anything, and this country's not that old. So we don't have, and we're so far from everywhere else. We don't have any concept of history. White people think they got here first, and they're always like, why are there so many Mexicans here? Because you went to Mexico. White people, Texas was Mexico. You went, but they don't teach us that stuff. In schools, you understand? You have white people in America telling Mexicans, you shouldn't live in this place called San Antonio. He named that place. They don't understand. There's no history in this country. And this country, somebody says, this building is 100 years old. Wow. Yeah. And then you go to Jerusalem, and you're sitting in a restaurant, and the owner comes over, and you say, tell me about this restaurant. And he says, well, Jesus ate here. And you're like, oh, okay, that's old. And so when I go to Palestine all the time, I go all the time, and can I tell you guys a secret now? We're all family here. I live in Detroit. Now, a lot of you don't know, Detroit has certain reputation. It's a little rundown city, you know. I was in Ramallah 2 years ago, and I wanted to do a comedy show. Let me tell you a story about the beauty of the people of Palestine. I was in Ramallah doing comedy shows, and I wanted to go to Gaza, but I couldn't go into Gaza. Because you know why we can't go to Gaza? Because of the club, so they don't let us into Gaza. Club is an Arabic word that means occupier. So because everybody was wondering. So we decided that I would do a show in Ramallah, and I would Skype with 30 young people in Gaza. Okay, it was very nice. And they all spoke English because they had all been to America. So after the show, one of the girls wants to ask me a question. And she says to me, "You're from America?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Where do you live in America?" I said, "Detroit." And she said, "Oh." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "I came to America. And I went all around America. And America is a beautiful country. And then I came to Detroit. And I saw Detroit. And I said to myself, what can the people of Gaza do to help the people of Detroit?" So they're very beautiful, generous people. That means tomorrow there might be a fundraiser in Gaza for Detroit. That's how messed up Detroit is. Somebody from Gaza walks around and goes, "Wow, this is pretty messed up here. People live here? That's crazy." Well, let me tell you this last thing and then I'll go. By the way, I brought, come meet me at the table outside. I brought some books with me. I wrote a book called "Being Palestinian Makes Me Smile." So if you want to support a Palestinian comedian who goes around, and because they're never going to put me on TV in America, ever. So come buy a book. It's $10. They're usually $20, but they're $10 for students tonight. Okay, $20 for adults. Okay, and don't bargain with me. All right, just $20. All right, huh? No, I'm the Joel. Okay, $40 for you. 50 for the white people, but 40 for you. That's white tax. That's privilege tax. $10 for students, and just come. Give me your parents' credit card or anything. I'll swipe it, and I'll sign it for you, and we'll take a picture. And actually, you know what? Before we leave, I want to take a selfie with everybody, and we'll put it online. Okay, you guys ready? Yes. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Wait, come on, be happy. Smile. 1, 2, 3. Hi. Okay, wait, and then I want to do a video of, wait, hold on, what did I do? Yeah, say, wait, okay, what's the video? Okay, so, hey, I'm here in UConn with me and a few of my friends. That was pretty cool. All right, so let me tell you a secret now before I go. I am Palestinian, like Jesus, and I'm from Nazareth, like Jesus. Literally. And can I tell you guys a secret now? We're all family here in stores. Can I tell you a secret? Can I tell you a secret? Okay. My parents are both Palestinian. They're both Palestinian refugees. My dad is Christian. My mom is Muslim. Yeah. That's called the haram combination. This is the result. So, anyway. So, I don't know if you know this. I travel into Tel Aviv. Now, for those of you who don't know, when we Palestinians arrive at Tel Aviv airport, there is like a VIP room for us. And we can stay as long as we want. So last time I was there, I went and I was in the VIP room for 12 hours. And finally, it was my turn to talk to the soldier. And he said to me, "What is your father's name?" said, George, because that's my father's name, George. He said, what is your Fasakh name? I said, Ilyas. Now, for those of you who don't know Arabic very well, George and Ilyas is two super duper Christian names. You cannot get more Christian. You can open up a church tomorrow with George and Ilyas. Then he said, what is your Mazakh name? I said, Anak. That's my mom said. Then he said, what is your Mazakh Fazakh name? I said, oh, Muhammad. And he got confused. And he said, so all you Christian, all Muslim. I said, whatever. Okay. He said, no. I need to put it in the computer. All you Christian, all Muslim. I said, listen, man, in my house, we celebrated everything. Christmas, Eid, Easter, Eid again. We didn't care. I said, we even celebrated Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. We didn't give a shit. I said, put Jew in your computer. Isn't that better for me? Put Jew in your computer. Now I don't got to deal with this crap anymore. And he started laughing, and I started laughing, and he said to me, where are you from? I said, I'm from Nazareth, Palestine, like Jesus. I said to him, where are you from? He said, I'm from Tel Aviv. I said, no, where are you from? All right, thanks everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you guys all for coming. I hope you guys had as much as a good time as we had. Can we have another round of applause for all of our speakers? And I also want to give one final shout out to all my board members. If you can stand when I call you out. Medium, where you at? Gretel. Ahmed. Khalid. Mohammed. Honestly, without all of you guys, all of my board members, like all the laughs that we've shared has like helped with everything. I mean, this whole thing would have not been done without them. So I'd like to really thank them for that. They've made the experience so like better. And then finally, I'd just like to shout out to all my seniors. I'm gonna miss you guys. So. And to conclude, we have the Depka brothers that are going to stick around and do a little workshop for us. So if you guys want a Depka over there, feel free. Thank you.